Hi, it's Lee from Colouring Queen, and today I'm going to colour this gorgeous girl from Karolina Kubikowska. It's from her postcard book Summer Memories, I believe. I have got some of my postcards mixed up, so I think it's from this one. Anyway, today I thought I would use my Neo Colour 2 by Karen Dash. I rarely use them, and I want to try and do a bit more with watercolours. So I've already put down some light blue here all over the background. I'm just going to go lightly with the colour as I'm not really sure of how much pressure I should apply. Plus, it's always easy to add more if I need it once it dries, as the cards are pretty sturdy, and with Neo Colour 2, you can add more colour while it's wet, or you can add it when it's dry as well. So, as we're colouring from a Polish artist, I thought I'd tell you about a Polish case. Now, it may be a chrome, it may not be. I'd love to know what you think, though. I've got an opinion, but I won't tell you what it is because I've got nothing to support that opinion other than my gut. And, that's not the best way of forming opinions on things. Anyway, so I've done my best with this one, but because it's a Polish case, I had to use a lot of Google Translate, as there was quite a bit of it in Polish, but not that much in English. So it was July 16th, 2010, and 19-year-old Iwona Wieczorek decided to live a little and go out to a party with one of her friends at Sopot. And it was a really exciting time in her life. She'd just finished high school. She'd done really well in her final exams. And soon she would be leaving home and going to university and hitting the books and no doubt partying more. But before she was going to do that, she was going to spend the summer in Spain. And that change of scene in Spain, it might have helped to get over her recent breakup with the boyfriend as well. But it was just all new beginnings, single, finishing high school, this whole change in your life from going from living with your parents to overseas holidays and then to university and having that whole life as a single young girl. The party she went to was at an allotment with one of her friends. Now, it was just a vacant piece of land. Now, these were often the types of parties that I went to as a teenager because I grew up in a country town. And just like them, they had a few drinks there, and that's what we used to do as well. There would be a fire pit and things like that, and that's what we would do. Some people say they had a barbecue as well, and some people say her friend Pael, who was the actual owner of this land. So anyway, after they'd been there drinking for a bit, they decided that they would head out to the clubs. And walking there, they walked to the Dream Club in Sopot. And she went there with her friend Adria and three other guys that she'd recently added to her social circle and recently met. And their names were Pal, and he is believed to have owned that allotment that they went to initially, Maret, and then there was Adria, and I'm not sure of the last person's name. But anyway, they go to the Dream Club. It's in the main centre of Sopot and a very popular venue. And it was about an hour or so in that Ivana just felt like she needed to get out, needed to get some fresh air. And so she left the club, went outside for a bit. I don't really know what she was doing there, but she still wasn't ready to go home. So she ended up going actually back into the club. And by then, the 16th of July had passed, and it was now the 17th of July. But something had changed in the group dynamic. Something had changed with the friends. There was some sort of words spoken. Maybe there was a misunderstanding, maybe an argument. Some people say it was trivial. But at the end of the day, Ivana really wasn't happy to stay with the others at the club, and she was upset. She ran out of the club about 2:30, 3 o'clock. And now Paul tried to stop her, and he wanted her to stay and talk things out, but she didn't want to. She wanted to get out of it. Now, some people say that the argument and these harsh words were actually with Pale, but I don't know. Most people agree on one thing only, that she was upset. And so she decided that she would walk home, and this would be about a 5K walk. And like most young teenagers, and she was dressed up to go partying. So she actually was wearing her mother's high heels. But it was daylight by this time as she started to set off for walking. It was about 4 a.m. by then. And there's actually CCTV footage of her walking along the promenade, and there's the sea in front. And she did what many of us do after a hard night of dancing in high heels. She took them off and she carried them in each hand. She was probably trying to protect them because she'd borrowed them from her mum. Now, she did have her phone with her, and she used that between 3 and 4 a.m. She called 5 friends, and including her friend Adria. And Adria had actually tried to call her as well, but she didn't pick up the call. She did, however, text Adria, and she did what we all should do, and that's tell her her location. Or I don't think she had location sharing. It was about 2010, but she did tell her where she was. Now, those messages have never been disclosed, but most people say that she was upset and she was angry that Adria, her friend, didn't leave the club with her when she left. Now, by this time, Iwona's phone battery was running really low, and she didn't have any money, and she didn't have any way of charging her phone. Now, I don't know if she didn't have enough money for a cab, or if she didn't have enough money for a bus, or just absolutely no money at all. I'm not really sure on the monetary situation. But anyway, the little tiff with Adria, the little misunderstanding, the friends made up in another phone call. And about 4 a.m. in that phone call, it was arranged that Iwona would actually go to Adria's place and she'd spend the night there. Now, the reason that Adria and Iwona wanted to do that was because Iwona had been drinking, and she thinks that her parents wouldn't be impressed by that. So Adria, I think, lived very close, or even if not next door, so she could spend the night there and then just go home in the morning. So now by this time, Iwona is walking home. She's covered a lot of distance by this time. But Adria and the other boys that they'd gone to the club with had actually caught a cab. And the cab had dropped each passenger off one by one. And by the time Adria was speaking to Iwona, she was actually nearly home. But what she was going to do was leave the keys out for Iwona so that she could let herself in when she arrived. Now, I think those keys were left on a balcony from some sources that I read. Unfortunately, though, those keys were never collected. Now, the two, Adria and Iwona, they lived pretty close together in Gdansk. And one source says that she was actually standing near Iwona's apartment when the conversation with Adria happened, arranging for the two girls to spend the night at Adria's house and to leave the key out. Not only that, the conversation was actually heard by Iwona's stepfather. Now, some people query whether that conversation was actually in real time, if it was face to face, like something where the two girls were actually there right outside the window discussing it, or whether it was a telephone call. But that's just speculation at this stage. What we do know is that the conversation was overheard. Now, it was several kilometers walk to Adria's house. It was about 5 or 6 kilometers, but Iwona was really keen not to go direct to her house. She really didn't want her parents to see her drunk. And even though Adria lived at home, her parents weren't actually home that weekend. They were away. She had the house to herself. So it seemed like just a really good all round solution for Iwona to go to Adria's place. So while Adria is at home, Iwona continued that long walk home in the breaking daylight, walking along bare feet in her going out clothes, probably tired, obviously a little bit drunk. She had to walk along the cement, who knows what was on the paths, broken glass, all sorts of germs and whatnot, going through parks, walking on grass and shrubbery and who knows. But along that way, she actually was tracked by CCTV. And that's what makes this case so interesting, is the amount of CCTV footage that there is. And on some of it, we can see Iwona stopped outside a hotel, and it's got a Chinese name or Chinese lettering. And it's like she stood there for 15, maybe 20 minutes while she was walking home. And maybe it looked like she was waiting for somebody. Now, during some of this walk, because we've got this CCTV footage, near the beach in Yelekkowa, you can see a man actually walking behind Iwona. And now he's not close to invade her space. He's a good distance behind, but he is really recognizable. He's got this blue plaid shirt on and he's got a white towel slung over his shoulder. And it looks like he's going down, to have a nice morning dip at the beach. Now, the thing is with this man, he hasn't come forward to say that he was there that night. He hasn't been identified. Now, as the sun rises and the day starts, the area starts to attract more and more people going out for their early morning strolls, going for coffee, and of course going to the beach. And like Iwona, many coming home from a big night out. But as Iwona continued to walk, that CCTV camera range would eventually disappear. She would actually be out of range of it. And the last time she is sighted on the CCTV shows her at the entrance to beach number 63. And by then, her cell phone battery was probably pretty low as well. Now, this is where we come to the issue. We don't know if Iwona continued straight ahead or if she turned left to the beach. To get to her home, she would have continued on the path through like a forest and a park for a few more kilometres, with the whole walk home taking her about an hour to an hour and a half. Now, by this time, the friends that she'd gone out with, they were all home, safe in bed. And her friend Adria had gone to bed believing that Iwona would soon be at her place and they'd spend the night as arranged. But that didn't happen. Those keys weren't collected, and it was nearly 12 hours later that Iwona's mother realised her daughter was missing. Now, she had assumed that she was at Adria's, and Adria had assumed that she'd changed her mind and she'd gone to her own home instead. Now, naturally, Iwona's mother and stepfather reported her disappearance to the police. But like in many missing persons cases, the police felt it was best to sort of wait and see, feeling that Iwona was probably off at another party or she'd met some other friends along the way. The real investigation didn't start until about a week later. And this is because Iwona had booked a trip to Spain before university and she still hadn't come home and she hadn't gone to Spain. And it was then that the police started to take the matter really seriously. But a week's a long time. and it's July, it's summer in Poland. People come and go, people are on holidays, and people can't remember details. CCTV gets erased or taped over, evidence can be lost, and a week is a long time. According to some, it was actually several weeks before a search party took place. Now, they looked in all the obvious areas: the allotment where the party started, the beach, the dream club, even a housing estate, but there was no sign of Iwona. Now, investigators interviewed all of Iwona's friends, including having them to take a polygraph, and there were up to 300 people that were interviewed, but still leads were slow, and it seems like she just vanished. Now, most investigators theorized that she had made it safely through the park. Some even believed that she had made it close to her home when she had met with foul play, maybe at the hands of someone she knew. Theories are meaningless, though, without evidence. And when that happens, the case just tends to go cold. Police become reactive instead of proactive while they wait and sit back and wait for leads to drizzle in. Now, over time, private investigators have taken up the case. Clairvoyants, of course, have weighed in with their opinions, and psychics. But it doesn't seem like anything tangible has come of it either. By 2013, the district prosecutor's office closed their investigation, and the case was transferred to a special division, which is called the X Files. And then things went quiet until 2022 when an arrest was made. But it's not what you think. Ivona's friend, Patel, was one of many that were arrested by the Department of Organised Crime and Corruption in Krakow, and he was actually charged with hindering the investigation of the disappearance of Iwona. Now, it seems that what he had done was erased certain messages from his computer and provided false information to the police. And the police didn't release any other details of these messages. So it's unknown if this was actual evidence, if it was important to finding Iwona, if it would have assisted in solving this mystery, and if it would have helped Iwona's mother and stepfather get some answers. But Powell ended up pleading not guilty in court, and this was back in 2022. So I'm unsure if this case has actually been finalised or what the actual result was, but it wouldn't be surprising that if it was still ongoing, because court processes tend to be a bit slow no matter where they are in the world. But it was around this time that the police released footage of the man in the plaid shirt. You know, that guy that was walking not close to Iwona, but he was certainly behind her, and he had the towel wrapped around his neck. He was seen on CCTV camera, and he actually hadn't been identified by 2022. So some 12 years, and they still didn't know who he was. Now, of course, he is a very important witness, or who knows. But because he wasn't identified, people, couldn't work out what his importance was to the case. So by this time, the police decided to release the CCTV footage to social media platforms in the hope of identifying him. Now, I certainly hope that this is not the first time that they did that, because it just seems bizarre to me that you would have something of so much importance that you would leave it 12 years. So hopefully this was just a second attempt later on with more social media platforms since 2010. Anyway, luckily they did, because he actually seen himself on the social media post and realized he was actually the man in the footage, and he took himself promptly down to the police station. Now, sadly, this wasn't a case of a missing link where this man could solve the mystery and wrap it up in a nice, neat bow. He was questioned by the police and he was released. And it seems that this lead and this witness, they were just a dead end. It just went nowhere. But a year later in 2023, the case hit the news again, not for good reasons. Poor Iwona's heartbroken mother was horrified to actually find a deep fake TikTok video which featured an AI generated image of her daughter asking the internet to give their theories of what happened to her. Now, maybe the creator was trying a unique way to get the conversation started about Iwana's disappearance and trying to solve that case. But Iwana's family were deeply upset by that AI generated image, and they were really quite distraught and thought it was quite a sick thing to do. Last year, in 2024, in June, the case was back in the spotlight again. Now, this time the police announced that they had turned their attention to a white Ford Centre that was seen in the area where Iwona lived along Primorsky Street near Reagan Park about 5:30 a.m. in the morning, around the time that Iwona would be expected to be travelling in that area. Now, Tri-City Detective Group said, assuming the late hour and the specific nature of the area, we think it might be a person associated with security or a group of people who help security guards. And there was some theorizing that it could be related to security at a local Russian nightclub, but this is just all theories and speculation. There are just so many questions about Ivona's disappearance. It's like she completely vanished. And that's because of the CCTV. When you can follow someone on CCTV and then it ends, it feels like she's just gone into a black hole. But it's because that there's no CCTV everywhere. Now, the mystery has captured the attention of the world. There's documentaries, there's podcasts, and there's even books written about Iwona, but still there is no sign of Iwona. There is a journalist out of Poland that I think he wrote the book, and he has made a lot of progress finding things that the police haven't been able to find and putting new things into the case, but still no sign of Iwona. And there is a reward. It was actually offered by a private businessman. I'm not sure how Poland does their reward system, but that's a little bit unusual in Australia. And that reward is actually over 250,000 US dollars. So that's a lot of money. Now, no one has come forward and claimed that reward. No one's given the evidence that would solve this case, but everyone seems to have a theory. There is misadventure. She was walking close to the beach and the park. It could have been a car accident and someone has covered up the evidence. Kidnapping is possible, foul play, trafficking. The list is endless, and the amount of theories and speculation is endless. But at this stage, there just doesn't seem to be any evidence to support any of those theories. And what the police have released and what the public knows, there's just no evidence that specifically points in any direction that would solve this mystery at this stage. Now, obviously, the police always know more, investigators always know more. They have to keep things close to their chest because otherwise they would have everybody coming forward and making false confessions or using up their resources to lead them the wrong way. So obviously, they always need to make their case as well. So hopefully the best scenario is, and what everyone always hopes in these cases, is that Iwona is out there living her best life. But it seems a bit strange that she would be able to do that with no money and very little. But hopefully, as we always hope with missing persons cases, that Iwona is safe and well no matter where she is. And hopefully her family and loved ones will get some answers soon. I'd love to know your thoughts about Iwona's disappearance. So, as I said at the beginning, I've got thoughts of my own, but absolutely no basis or evidence that's been made public to support that. So I'll keep it to myself at this time. Now I have finished my picture. I've added some Prismacolor pencils over the top just to give it some extra shading and so I can have a bit more control and depth over the colors. And then I put some little dots on with my gel pens, and I think I'm going to call that finished. I did put some more dots on, but I didn't like them, so I ended up scraping them off with my fingernail, which is what I always do when I don't like it. So that's it from me. I hope you have a good week, and until next time, stay safe and happy colouring.